We do know that all children, the first 5 years of their life, is the most important time in terms of brain development, in terms of their ability to learn, and that the investment in early education has the greatest return on investment of any other time.
I was doing a lot of babysitting for my then baby brother, who's now 50 years old. And I always felt like, I don't even know why people in Iowa or Montana would want to watch this. This is a New York show. This is about kids like us.
Right.
And of course, it's about kids.
Exactly. And I mean, your baby brother's now 50, so is Sesame Street, just turned 50 this year. And, it was created, obviously the hope was it would appeal to all children, but it was the first show with a multiracial cast, so children could see themselves. And I think the other thing that is so important is it was created to see if television, at the time, that was quite radical, could be used to teach. And to help give less advantaged children some of the same advantages of their peers who were more upper middle class by arriving at school ready to learn.
Now that you're purposely going into conflict zones,
Yes.
that's consistent with the mission,
Yes.
but also a different assignment, because children who are living in a refugee camp have very different needs from one who live on a street in a town where there's not bombs and there's not shooting and nobody's dying.
Well, yes and no. Any traumatic event that is consistent in a child's life in those early years can be enormously debilitating and literally affect their brain development. And so the most important thing to mitigate that is early intervention and more engagement with a caring adult, whether that's a child in, Sacramento or a child in Syria. So we do adapt our work to meet the needs of children. Sesame Street is uniquely able to tackle tough issues, always from the lens of a child. But we also know the basic needs of a child for healthy development and for them to thrive is the same.
I've always known that Sesame sweats the details.
Yes, we do.
Whether Susan can be pregnant or how to handle it when Mr. Hooper dies.
Absolutely,
or all
that's a
those
great
things.
example.
Yeah.
We were the only children's show when Mr. Hooper died. I've talked to Joan Gantz-Cooney, our founder, about this, and she said they really struggled. How do they deal with it? And decided, can we address it head on? The partners were Harvard educators, and they said, we can, let's try. And it was somewhat controversial that they do that, but it was about respecting children, teaching them about death, and that started our work in terms of tackling tough issues and doing so very directly, very sensitive to the age, child appropriate, but helping children tackle those issues.
I guess there's a correlation, a relationship, when you're talking about trying to reach children who've had a lot of disappointment in their lives, a lot of trauma. You're not only contextualizing, but maybe healing. Is that fair?
Absolutely. A lot of the curriculum in this new broadcast will be about building the social emotional skills and giving children the language to express their emotions. What we've learned from educators there is they don't even have the appropriate language to explain what they're feeling. And it makes it impossible for children to heal if they can't talk about it, if they can't express it, and that literally is a prerequisite to their learning. So we are really focusing a lot on the social emotional skills and the language of emotions. And as you know, when children can identify with the storyline and see themselves, it helps. And so in this new production, one Muppet named Jed will have left his home. He will become best friends with a little girl Muppet, Basma. And then there'll be other characters that you recognize from Sesame. These will be new local characters, but you can imagine right there that there are storylines about someone having to leave, someone coming from somewhere else, and becoming best friends with someone there, because we want to be also modeling acceptance and inclusion and empathy.
But there are different norms around things like gender roles, the place of religion in the culture and in the society. You have to be careful as well.
Oh, listen, we have to be so careful, but it's one of the things that Sesame has been able to do very effectively. I'll give you an example. In Afghanistan, a country where girls' education is a huge need, we have created, our local production is called Bache Simpson, which means Sesame Garden in Dari and Pashto. Because there's a focus on gender equity, we deliberately made the lead Muppet a little girl. Her name is Zari. She wears her hijab, her school uniform. So she loves to go to school. She loves to learn. And we are modeling not just for young girls that it's okay for you to go to school, but for young boys that it's okay for girls to go to school. And so much, not only the storylines, but even in the live action films, we make sure to show Afghan doctors who are women, lawyers. And the great news is that when we do our research, which is key, little boys who watch test 29% higher on gender equity, saying they think it's okay for girls to go to school. Fathers, through qualitative research, have cited that watching Bache Simpson is the reason they've changed their mind about permitting their daughters to go to school. And believe it or not, in a country like Afghanistan, 70% of the audience is watching with an adult. So you think of that. I think because we're a children's show, we're less threatening, and we're able to model live action pieces with a father helping a daughter go to school. I believe it's where Sesame can have the greatest impact, by planting those seeds for societal change.
But are there people who say no? Are there people in these societies who see the Sesame product line as foreign, from a foreign culture, even if it's got, grace notes and signposts that it's a rooted in the country, that it's an attempt from outside?
I hope not, because I don't think young children in rural Afghanistan watching Bache Simpson know about Sesame Street in the U.S. In fact, children who grew up watching Sesamstrasse in Germany believe Bert and Ernie are German. So in Success, we really create local productions. Our partners are local. Our Afghan partners, we partner with the Ministry of Education. We don't come in unless we're wanted. But you're right, they're cultural sensitivities, and we put so much thought into them. We make sure we bring in local educators, local experts, because it's so important that these productions are their own. We may have a model we know works, but we learn from the local experts to make sure it's culturally sensitive, to make sure we really understand the issues those children are facing. Even the example I gave you of Zari, who is the little girl Muppet in Afghanistan, you can't imagine how much time and thought with local partners went into whether or not she would wear a hijab. Some felt she needed to be more progressive and not wear it. We ultimately decided she should, because we wanted young Afghan girls to be able to identify with her, even though we are pushing, maybe not the limit, but really showing that she loves to go to school. Now, she wears her hijab with her school uniform, and she doesn't when she's in more casual dress. But I give it as an example just to show how much thought goes into every aspect of the characters in order to make sure that we're culturally sensitive and still addressing the critical curricular goals.
So what's on the drawing board? I mean, there's such a legacy of success that flows out of the original Sesame Street that no one would even blame you if you said, we got this licked. We have a model that works. We have a model that travels the globe. We got this.
But no, A, there's so many more children we could reach if we have the funding. B, there are new children. Our audience is being born every day, and there will always be a need for early education, early learning for young children. So we'll never have it licked. We'll always have it. This is not like we're trying to go out of business because we're trying to solve or cure a disease. The need for young children to have quality early education is ongoing. And if Sesame can play a role, particularly for those vulnerable children, those who are displaced, then that's what we feel we have to do. That's our mission.